Big Monday on ESPN2 arrives in Durham, North Carolina. Tonight, South Carolina State takes on North Carolina Central. Derek Jones and Corey Alexander with you this evening from McDougal-McClendon Arena. And Corey, these are two teams that are very excited to get back out there on the floor. They've both had to deal with long layoffs to start the new year.
They really have, but two different types of layoffs. South Carolina State crammed 13 games into a very short stretch, but for North Carolina Central, they've only played one game in a span of 51 days, and that was Friday over at Carver, not even Division I opponent. So Lavelle Moulton not has any understanding as to what his team is going to look like tonight, and Coach Murray Garvin not going to have much either. So when you think about both these coaches, they're really not certain as the product they're going to see on the floor, but they're happy to be back playing and getting their guys some competition against someone themselves.
And certainly we got to look at one of the key players, C.J. Kaiser. He's going to be a big factor potentially for North Carolina Central tonight.
And he will be, and C.J. Kaiser, a big-time scorer, just like his coach, Lavelle Moulton, was for North Carolina Central, as well as Coach Murray Garvin, now in his 9th season at South Carolina State. So both these coaches well-versed in MEAC basketball, but 2021 has been a different year for everyone involved.
Believe it or not, the first day of February is the MEAC opener for North Carolina Central. We're underway. And Kaiser going right to work.
Well, one of the things when you take off that much time, if you're a bucket, you'll still be a bucket. And we see C.J. Kaiser coming out, getting the game started off with the mid-range jumper. And Coach Garvin was very concerned about Kaiser. He's played against him in the past, knows how big of a scorer he is and how productive he can be on the court. And rightfully so, Kaiser getting off to a great start.
And Themis Folks driving in that time, drawing the foul. And these guards for South Carolina State very active. And we'll see if they can test the conditioning of this North Carolina Central team. A storyline we'll be talking about throughout this evening because of the little amount of time they've had to practice and get some run going this year.
Loved hearing Coach Garvin talk about Folks yesterday, though. A big-time freshman for him, and coming in and having to understand the difference between playing college basketball in comparison to being, physically dominant in high school basketball. But you can see on the first possession how aggressive he is attacking the basket and trying to keep defenses on the heel.
The freshman knocks down a pair. The foul was charged to Ty Graves. 2 apiece to start out from Durham. Coach Garvin talked about getting the opponent out of their comfort zone. Perkins, Graves, Kaiser, Fennell, and Watley, the 5 for the Eagles. Straight on 3.
Great execution by the Eagles, unable to knock down the shot, but that's where you want. Ty Graves is a knockdown shooter, getting him an opportunity at the top of the key, wide open. You've got to like the offensive execution.
Rashawn Edwards missing on the shot, the loose ball off to the Eagles. Down the floor, the block by Mandel. And the transition offense down the floor. The layup no good, but a foul on the Folks drive. And the second time he attacks the rim, and the second time will go to the free throw line.
Well, you see getting out in transition, however, a great block in denying an opportunity which allows Folks to be able to get back to the free throw line. He's already knocked down 2 early in this game, an opportunity to put 2 more points on the board for the Bulldogs. And right now, one of the things that we've talked with both of these coaches about is their practice time. And you can see early South Carolina State, they have gotten after it. We've talked with Coach Garvin. He talked about the fact that, hey, we've had to break up fights. These guys were so tired of seeing each other. On the flip side, Lavelle Moulton's team in the 2020-2021 season thus far this year, they've had 6 practices. That is unheard of, to imagine the fact that they played 5 games. So now, with this game, just as many games as they have practices on the season.
COVID has had such a tremendous effect, in a negative sense, on the MEAC in particular. And you see there the tweet by Coach Moulton, 51 days, 6 practices. That is staggering. You forget about the games. Just the fact that they have not been together as a team has been just, I'm sure, a tough thing on the coach and the program.
And when you consider how great of a defensive program this has been, that takes an even bigger toll when you don't have the opportunity to put in your defenses. It's one thing to be able to have guys that can come out and score. C.J. Kaiser can score if he hasn't practiced, in 2 years. But will they be on the same page defensively? That's the biggest concern for Coach Moulton in this game. And right now they haven't been, as South Carolina State has jumped out to a 6-2 lead.
Jamal Davis with the last three. Good defense here by the Bulldogs. The block at the rim. But a foul coming up first. This may be against Davis, who was one of the players who made contact there at the rim.
Jordan Perkins taking his time getting up. That was a big-time collision under the basket. And you love Perkins' aggressiveness, really the pass-first point guard, but recognizing that the shot clock was going down. A tough landing for Perkins as well, though. That was a dangerous play. And one of the areas of concern for college basketball over the past few seasons is trying to, I won't say get rid of the charge call, but they want to limit the opportunities that you have for collisions as such, and that's the reason why. So difficult to be able to control your body when someone's underneath of you coming down after trying to go in and jump full speed.
That's the first foul picked up by South Carolina State tonight. MEAC Basketball is charged with the foul. He was also there on that attack on the rim. 1 out of 2 at the line for the senior Perkins. 6-3 lead for the Bulldogs. The freshman Fulks surveying the stingy defense of the Eagles. Edwards hopping into the lane, finishes.
We've seen early it's been a concerted effort by the Bulldogs to attack the basket. One thing they want to try to do is wear into the legs of North Carolina Central. They recognize as well that these guys haven't played as many games, they haven't had the practice, so they're sure that they won't have the same level of conditioning that the Bulldogs have, and Coach Garvin wants to try to exploit that as much as he can.
Loose, Kaiser hounded, and a jump ball to call.
As we see Edwards on the run and attacking the basket, great body control, also to avoid the shot blocker and get it up on the glass. Got away with a little bit of a left arm push off on that one, but hey, no harm, no foul.
Edwards is the team's leading scorer, averaging just under 10 points per game. The Bulldogs do not have a scorer averaging double figures.
And Coach Garvin talked to us about that, and he doesn't mind it because that way you don't have to rely on one guy to be able to come out and score big for you to have success each and every night. But at the same time, he does want to know what he's going to get from each and every player on a consistent basis, and that's really what they haven't been able to find so far. Right now, South Carolina State coming in at 0-13 on the season. A bunch of tough losses, and of course they've had to go out and play a number of big-time opponents on their opposing court. So right now, he's hoping they can put it all together here tonight.
A left-handed thunder jam by Nicholas Fennell. So Fennell throws it down with the left hand. It's an 8-5 ball game. And a foul as once again Fulks trying to make his way through the defense.
Well, early you see the legs are there for the Eagles as Fennell is able to get out and finish for the highlight. But the question is going to be, what do the Eagles look like in the second half? And I'm sure Coach Moulton will play at least 10 guys. They played 10 players against Carver on Friday. However, Coach Garvin saying he's glad that North Carolina Central did play that game so they could have some idea of the personnel that they would be facing. But he knew that Lavelle Moulton held out on a lot of his sets, a lot of his tricks, knowing that South Carolina State was watching.
3-point lead for the Bulldogs. Looking for their first win of the season. Fulks, step back jumper, knocks it down.
And Fulks has been aggressive early in this game, and you have to recognize that the young man is from Winston-Salem, North Carolina. He knows about Central, and I'm sure has been thinking about this game and happy for the opportunity to go up against his home state squad here on national TV.
The lead at 5. Bulldogs defense doing an effective job so far. Open shooter for three. Got it. Mike Melvin buries a three-pointer, and that cuts it to a 2-point lead for the Bulldogs.
You know, and one of the things, Derek, we talk about is there a home court advantage without the, crowd in the building? And you know for certain that this place is turned when they have it rocking in this arena. So, but there is a bit of a home court advantage for shooters recognizing where they are. And right now, the three ball has got North Carolina Central back within a 2-point game. The South Carolina State, we got to like the action we've seen here in the first 5 minutes. Looking forward to more coming back.
ESPN's exclusive presentation of college basketball is brought to you by Tostitos. Get to the good stuff.
Here's Mavs on ABC.
Two-point lead for South Carolina State. They lead it over North Carolina Central. Derek Jones and Corey Alexander with you this evening as we bring you MEAC action from Durham, North Carolina. And Corey, a tough week for college basketball last week with the passing of former Temple coach John Chaney, who passed away at the age of 89 last Friday. Both coaches in this game clearly impacted by what Coach Chaney meant to the game of basketball.
Absolutely, and both look at Coach Chaney as a mentor, as a pioneer of the game, which, most of us in the African-American community do. When you think about the fact of what, Coach Chaney was able to do, but we get an opportunity to see so much from what he meant to Lavelle Moulton. Reading his tweet, so much more than a coach, a father figure, a teacher, a leader of men. I am because of you. You will be missed. And Coach Moulton talked to us about that earlier today, that he's in this position because of men like John Chaney, men like John Thompson, who paved the way, an opportunity for young black men not only to be able to play the game of basketball, but also have an opportunity to coach and mentor other young men and try to give them an opportunity to be successful.
John Chaney coached the Temple Owls from 1982 to 2006. Coach Garvin with his comments as a three-pointer is in from the right corner. But an infraction here against North Carolina Central.
But Coach Garvin talked to us about the fact that he started having early practices with his team because of Coach Chaney. And again, that's something that is synonymous with early practices. It was all about John Chaney. He was the guy that did it, and he originally did it to make sure that his guys went to bed at night and kept them out of trouble. And I can remember being briefly recruited by Coach Chaney and knowing about the 5 a.m. practices, which did not interest me. However, I do understand the purpose behind it and had so much respect for Coach Chaney, just the opportunity to be able to talk to him as a young player and as a recruit. It's almost the same thing with John Thompson. You sit there in awe of men that you've watched, over and over again. And we can't forget the fact that, John Chaney is not only a pioneer in black coaches, but he was an HBCU player, a big-time player at Bethune-Cookman. So, we have to take our hats off. Much respect to Coach Chaney and prayers for his friends and family as they deal with a difficult time. But Coach Chaney left a tremendous legacy for us to remember him by.
That last foul against the Bulldogs charged to Isaiah Felder. That's his first. 10-all ball game. Deep three is good. Latavian Lawrence.
Right now, South Carolina State making themselves right at home at North Carolina Central, where there is a 17-game winning streak on the line for the Eagles. And although this is their opener, 12-0 a season ago at home, this is a team that's been great in their own arena. But right now, South Carolina State coming in and making themselves at home.
The Eagles have won 82% of their games under Coach Moulton in this building. That is a staggering number when you take a look at just all of the home numbers. And that's one of the things that is going to be different for the Eagles this season, not having that home crowd to kind of help push them and help that defense, again, extend itself and then turn into significant offense on the other side.
Well, Derek, we're doing the games from our homes, and I'll be honest with you, this is one game that I've done that I'm almost glad that I'm at home, because going to Central, where I've done a number of games, and not having the crowd there and not having the environment would be a huge letdown for me, as Kaiser knocks down to 3, so to tie this game at 13. So I don't have a problem not being there, especially when you consider that the crowd is not in the arena.
I was there last season for North Carolina Central and Norfolk State, and that game, unbelievable atmosphere, big comeback by the Eagles.
And you see great ball movement, the kick out to Kaiser, who lines up the 3 and knocks it down. And again, the long layoff has not affected his ability to be able to score. And you look at C.J. Kaiser shooting 44% from three-point range on the season, which is 3rd in the MEAC, behind actually his teammate, Jameer Moultrie, who's shooting over 46%. So you've got, a number of knockdown shooters on this Eagle squad.
That's the second foul, by the way, against Mike Melvin. So he's in early foul trouble. Approaching the midway point of half one. Bulldogs trying to keep this possession going, but a shot clock violation called. And just not enough hustle there towards the end of the shot clock expiring.
That was a situation where the ball ended up in the wrong hands at that time. Again, doesn't want to take that shot, recognizing that the shot clock is going down. And that's when you need one of your guards to go get the basketball and make a play. And you look at, North Carolina Central, they started out the game 1 for 5 from the field. You saw the rust, but since then, 4 from their last 5 opportunities, they've been able to take advantage of.
And stepping into the passing lane, Omar Krosky, but a steal. Palmer in with the feed, the layup, no good. Player control foul called. The charge picked up by Omar Krosky. So Krosky taking the charge and getting the call going the other way. 13 all. Eagles, Bulldogs going back and forth as a part of Big Monday on ESPN2.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
It's a huge Super Tuesday doubleheader for you tomorrow on ESPN and the app at 7 Eastern. Number 6 Texas hosts number 2 Baylor. Then we head to the Big Ten for number 12 Illinois squaring off against Indiana. All a part of Super Tuesday. And those are some tremendous matchups. Baylor having such a fabulous season, looking to extend that as a part of Super Tuesday.
We've got a super matchup here tonight. I'm impressed with the way that both these teams have come out and played, especially when you consider the amount of time they've been off the court. To come out and shooting the ball relatively well and not turning it over much, which you would expect to see from teams that have had such long layoffs.
Top of the arc 3 short, but the follow is right there. Jamal Davis.
And even when you do miss shots and you got guys like Davis flying in from the opposite side with the tip dunks, you've got to be happy with the effort from your team if you're Coach Garvin and what you've seen thus far. Coach Moulton not knowing what he's going to find from his team with such a long layoff, but yet I know he doesn't like passes going straight down the middle of his zone defense for an easy layup.
One thing to keep your eye on, by the way, as we went to break, that player control foul picked up by Mike Melvin. That was his 3rd. And we'll get another foul here against the Eagles on the way up. The aggressive attack of the Bulldogs continues. So the struggles here in terms of team fouls continuing for North Carolina Central. That's the second against Jordan Perkins. As Tariq Simmons heads to the line. There you see the rundown on Simmons, and he's a notable figure on this South Carolina State team. He's the only returning starter from last season. Corey, they lost 4 of their 5 starters.
Yeah, and Coach Garvin talked to us about that. They have 10 newcomers on the roster. 5 of those newcomers are true freshmen, so and all 10 of those guys did not play, has never played Division I basketball. So putting it together, but give, Murray Garvin a lot of credit for what they've been able to do. And you look at that, the only returning starters you mentioned, Tariq Simmons, and 6 freshmen, 2 transfers, but yet they've had 13 games to try to figure out their routine. And more importantly, he says that his team has given him everything you could ask for in practice. He's hoping to see, the harvest come from that during this game. He would love the opportunity to be able to play on national TV. Is thankful that the MEAC gave them the opportunity. We were supposed to have North Carolina Central at Howard tonight. And so give the MEAC credit for putting this matchup together on very short notice and allowing us to be able to showcase MEAC basketball and 2 very good teams going at it here on Monday night.
Kaiser connects for 3.
And one very, very good player in C.J. Kaiser, who's gotten off to a great start, already in double figures for Kaiser, 10 points for him. As North Carolina Central has shot 3 for 7 already from beyond the arc.
Kaiser averaging 21 points per game, and he's been the key guy so far, as expected. Going to the glass at time is Jamal Davis, and Davis continuing his nice first half of play. It's a 19-18 lead for the Bulldogs.
Coach Garvin talked to us about Davis and said that he felt like he could be an all-conference player in the MEAC when it's all said and done. And he loves this team and what they bring. Oh, that's a tough foul right there.
Edwards on the attack gets hit hard to the floor, and he'll go to the line for a pair of shots.
And Jordan Perkins, once again, the assist man, finding opportunities for his teammates. Beautiful find from Perkins, who now has 2 assists and is now 2 away from 500 in his career for the Eagles.
Edwards missing on the first.
Yeah, Perkins has started 75 of the 105 possible games. We look on the other side at Rashawn Edwards and what he did a year ago, only 1.4 points per game in 9.2 minutes. But now when you look at what he's doing this season, 9.8 points per game in 27 minutes. And he's one of those guys, the Coach Garvin talked to us about their program is about development, where they may not get the same level of Division I transfers or the higher level freshmen that North Carolina Central gets. They have to develop players and find a way to keep them in the program and hopefully grow old together. But he likes this group and says that simply, if they stick together, they're going to be something to be dealt with in the future.
What a drive by Fennell, and the finish and one for Nicholas Fennell.
And both these teams have done a tremendous job, and we've talked about the three-point shootings, but they've also done a great job attacking the basket and putting pressure on the opponent. Fennell puts that right arm out just a little bit, but is still able to shield off the defender and find the touch off the glass.
Lead at 3 now for the Eagles. It's been a back and forth first half. Pressure picked up here by the Eagles. 3 ball up. That's off out of the hands of Edwards.
And that's the quick shot that Lavelle Moulton is waiting for South Carolina State to take when you have the pressure, but that's going to be a carrying call on Kaiser, which you don't see that called often in college basketball. And if it were, it would be called a lot more when you consider that everyone does that in college basketball right now. I'm not sure if Kaiser really got his hand under the basketball, but the official thought so, which means it's valid.
Largest lead of the night for North Carolina Central. Just 3 points. To the post, and a dive and a steal. Perkins down the lane, lays it up and in.
And what a luxury to have a senior point guard in Perkins to run the show for you when you're Lavelle Moulton and you consider what your team and your program has been through over the last 6 months, really, 10 to 12 months when you consider what's been going on with COVID. To have a guy that you can rely on to run the show and has the experience is a luxury for Coach Moulton.
Fennell sliding to the floor off the missed shot. Good hustle by the Eagles. Perkins to the wing with a pass. Flipping it up at the rim, missing, is Justin Wright, the freshman.
Turning defense into offense has been a mantra for the Eagles as Perkins is able to go 94 feet for the finish. And right now, legs have not been a problem for the Eagles. They've come out with tremendous energy early in this game and happy just to be back on the court. And, both these coaches talked to us, Derek, about the fact that they're happy to be playing on ESPN. And they wanted to make sure that regardless of the layoffs, that their teams put out a great product trying to attract young men to come play at HBCU, specifically North Carolina Central and South Carolina State University.
And both of them take such great pride in being a part of the MEAC. And you mentioned it earlier, development. And not just on the floor, but off the floor as well. They take great pride in the academic success of their players and the success of their players once they graduate from the program.
And we go back to John Chaney and John Thompson, the two legends, two pioneers that we lost in the past year. And you think about what their role was. Basketball was only a small piece of what those two coaches preached. It had more to do with education and turning, young boys into men. And both these coaches, Murray Garvin as well as Lavelle Moulton, have taken on that identity. They want to win in basketball, but they're more encouraged about winning at life for their players. And they're both great examples of doing so, and they want to continue to preach that message on each and every day.
Nicholas Fennell. Picking up his second foul. The missed free throw by Folks can't stop an 11-3 run for the Eagles since about the 10.5 mark of the first half. 1 out of 2 for the freshman. 5-point lead for the Eagles. They have gotten better as this game has worn on. And they are holding on to a 5-point lead at the moment. A whistle here and a foul on the way. This will be against the Bulldogs. Nadal, one of the first players there for South Carolina State, may have been a bit too aggressive, and that's his second. Latavian Lawrence back in the mix for South Carolina State.
South Carolina State playing somewhat of a 1-3-1 zone, but they're unable to stop Perkins from driving right down the middle of the lane. And when you trap the basketball, you've got to have some type of rotation over. But no rotation on that possession to take away Perkins' driving lane. And the veteran drives it right down the middle. Of the lane. He will have an opportunity to increase the lead for the Eagles when we return.
Has to offer.
No matter the records, one of the best rivalries in all of college basketball, North Carolina and Duke. We get a shot there of Lavelle Moulton, who leads this North Carolina Central team, and he is very familiar with this program, Corey, a former player.
And it's nothing like having a coach that played at the same university that you play at, that's been through the experiences that you've been through. And Derek, you asked Coach Moulton earlier today, if there was a player on his team that reminded him of himself. I'll let you tell the world what his answer was.
He said repeatedly, no, 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 no.
And I can tell you why. I can tell you why. I went through the game notes that our guy Jonathan Duran does a great job. The sports information director at North Carolina Central does a tremendous job with the game notes. And I went through the game notes today and looked at North Carolina Central's game high points throughout their great tradition. Now you see Sam Jones. Ooh. So I got to take a pause for a second there when you hit a rim rattling like that.
Jamal Davis doing it again.
Yeah, but you look at, Sam Jones had a 44-point game against North Carolina A&T between 1953 and 1954. They don't know the exact day. Now, I'm not sure if Sam Jones, the legend, the Hall of Famer, was doing that when you think about the finish at the rim, but he was getting buckets. But as I went further into the game high points, LaVelle Moulton had 9, count it, one hand and 4 fingers on the other, leave off the thumb, 9 30-point games in a 2-year span. That's why there's no one on his roster like him, because there's no one he has. And Kaiser's a big-time scorer, but I'm not sure when his career is done at North Carolina Central, he will be able to say he's got 9 30-point games.
He said one of the biggest differences was the fact that he just played with such an incredible chip on his shoulder. It was the attitude that he brought to the floor. It's just totally different than what you see from players nowadays. And the defense there by South Carolina State turning into offense, a layup in from Tariq Simmons.
And Tariq Simmons, the veteran for South Carolina State, doing a tremendous job of helping to stop this run from North Carolina Central, as they've made this now a 1-possession game, and we saw North Carolina Central get off to, that 8-point lead, the biggest lead of the game for them, and try to get some separation, but give the Bulldogs credit for fighting back and getting back into this one.
The Eagles missed 4 of their first 5 shots, then knocked down 9 of the next 11. It's Kaiser loses the ball. Edwards on the run. It gets pinned to the glass, but a foul.
And that's a scenario where Kaiser, because he attracts so much attention as an offensive player, when you get trapped, you have to be able to get rid of the basketball. Kaiser does a great job getting back defensively, blocking the shot. Not a lot of contact there, but we'll say there's contact with the body, the reason he got the foul. But this has been a physical game thus far between these two teams, and you see what is at stake. They recognize that they don't get the opportunity to play on ESPN as often, and they're going to try to make the best out of it. But I like what both teams have done. They haven't gotten out of character in any one individual trying to do too much. They've played as a team on both sides, and we've had quality basketball because of it.
Edwards no good on the first free throw. Free throw shooting has been a gigantic problem for South Carolina State this season. They've lost close games this year, and a part of it is because of the free throw shooting. 62% on the season. That is last in the MEAC.
And we see Jameer Moultrie checking into the game, one of the top scorers for the Eagles, and the first time he's checked in. He did not play against Carver on Friday night. Not sure the reason why, but Moultrie averaging 9.5 points per game, and we mentioned earlier shooting 46.7% from 3. So in this zone, South Carolina State going to have to know where he is. And right on cue, Jameer Moultrie lines it up, knocks it down. It's a transfer from LaSalle, who had over 3, maybe 4 20-point games in his career in the first 2 years at LaSalle. He can definitely score the ball, but a little bit of retribution on the other end.
Latavian Lawrence with the answer.
Yeah, Latavian Lawrence played for my guy Deion Bethea down at Gray Collegiate in South Carolina. He was heavily recruited coming out of high school, chose to stay home at South Carolina State, but 2 threes for him already. Was a 2A player of the year at Gray Collegiate, an opportunity, and got them to 3 straight state championships. So he's no stranger to the big stage.
31-29 lead for North Carolina Central. And a reminder, coming up on Thursday, it's a big one in the Big Ten. Number 7 Ohio State winners of 3 straight and 6 of their last 7 on the road against Luka Garza and number 8 Iowa. Coverage starts at 7 Eastern, 6 Central on ESPN and the app. Luka Garza, one of the great players this season. He has been a monster for Iowa.
And North Carolina Central knows a bit about that. They opened the season against Iowa at Iowa. Ended up being a big loss, a lopsided loss, but that was a game that LaVelle Moulton took his team to without any practice. They had just gotten out of the COVID protocol and had no opportunity to practice. Went out and played as Jameer Moultrie knocks down his second three, who's wasting no time getting into the action. We talked about his numbers, 47% from 3, which is second in the MEAC, but 2 for 2 already in this game after only about a minute of game action. That number may go up.
And a foul picked up off the drive by Lawrence. Cameron Bowles out there on the baseline trying to stop Lawrence, and he will pick up the foul here for the Eagles. And this will be, I believe, a 1-and-1 situation.
One thing we've seen, 16 combined fouls in this game so far. So if there's anything that's interrupted the rhythm, it has been fouls. A couple of guys in foul trouble, but you would expect that when you consider that neither of these teams have played in such a long time. And when you consider the level of aggressiveness and how hard each of these teams is playing, understanding the stakes. And, you know, we talk about stakes for North Carolina Central. We know that the NCAA minimum is 13 games to be able to participate in the NCAA tournament. Well, the Eagles have represented the MEAC in the last 3 NCAA tournaments that they had an opportunity that we've played in. Of course, no NCAA tournament in 2020, but they won in 2019, 2018, and 2017. They would love to be able to keep alive at the game with streak of 4. However, right now with only 5 games remaining, and now you talk about only 8 games remaining on the schedule, they would not be able to participate if they had any more stoppages in play. So to this point, they have to play every game just to be eligible to play in the NCAA tournament if they were able to win the MEAC tournament in March.
And that's going to be certainly something to monitor. The MEAC and the shape of it totally different this year because of COVID. They've switched up to a northern and southern division alignment, and that has made things a little trickier to deal with because you're only playing teams in your area basically, and that has made games tougher to come by. And this is a team in North Carolina Central that's had 9 games either canceled or postponed this season as we get a look at the MEAC standings. And you see kind of the position North Carolina Central's in. As we said, it's February 1st. This is their MEAC opener.
Well, and not everyone is going to be able to participate in the MEAC tournament, so you have to have a certain record to be able to get in. You see my guy Juan Dixon in Coppin State at the top of the Northern Division, but then you also see where Kenny Blakely and Howard Bison have not played a MEAC game as well. And I've been on actually 2 games, we're supposed to have 2 games where Howard has been canceled. So when you think about that in itself, you know, they're still trying to find a way to get to that minimum 13 games.
Nice jumper hit there by Cameron Bowles, pushing the lead out to 6. 38-32, 4.5 left to go in the first half. And this will be a player control foul coming up against Folks, who pushed off.
I like Folks. I like what I've seen from Folks early, and of course going out against, you know, the veteran in Jordan Perkins. But I like the way that Folks has approached this game, been extremely aggressive as he and Coach Garvin have a conversation on the bench now that he's picked up his second foul. But I like the way that he's come out with his approach and his aggressiveness to this game.
3 players with 2 for South Carolina State: Folks, Nadal, and Davis. 6-point edge. And a turnover here as falling out of bounds that time. Moultrie, he came close to falling out the first time, and then the second time on the move, stepped out.
Yeah, he tiptoed that line for a while. And then once he made this move, the reverse step took him out of bounds for a turnover. You know, but relatively clean game thus far as you see another beautiful find against the pressure for an easy layup for South Carolina State. And, you know, and give the Bulldogs credit. They have come in prepared to play. They knew that they were going to face significant defensive pressure from the Eagles, but yet they've been prepared and ready to handle it.
4-point lead. Open shooter outside. Got it. Justin Watley hitting the three. And the lead out to 7.
And Derek, I'll tell you this. North Carolina Central right now, 6 for 11 from beyond the three-point arc. Maybe the coach, LaVell Walton, doesn't need to practice. When your team is going to shoot the basketball this way after only 6 practices on the season, maybe you shouldn't be practicing.
Moultrie, Euro step and a finish.
I'm sure some of Coach Moulton's players will be saying the same. If they can come out and have this level of performance, especially on the offensive end of the floor, without practice, they don't want Coach messing it up, having them in the gym early in the morning.
We'll get a foul here. As the Eagles leading by 9. Largest lead of the game for North Carolina Central. Moultrie and company leading the charge for the Eagles. We have another full day of college hoops across all our networks Saturday, highlighted by our Sonic Blockbuster featuring North Carolina and Duke at 6 Eastern. Then it's the border battle between number 11 Tennessee and Kentucky at Rupp Arena. Catch both of these games on ESPN and the app. 43-34 lead for North Carolina Central. Derek Jones and Corey Alexander with you tonight. And Corey, the Eagles have just been building and building and building as this game has gone on.
And they really have, and I'm sure to a surprise of Coach Moulton, who told us, you know, they can't beat a good high school team right now. But that's, of course, that's coach talk. That's from the understanding of, hey, we haven't been in the gym long enough. We haven't put in our sets. We haven't put in our defensive sets. We haven't had the opportunity to do it. COVID has really taken a toll on, you know, what you have to call right now the MEAC's flagship program when it comes to basketball, simply because they are the 3-time defending MEAC champion. And again, went 12-0 at home a year ago. There was a strong possibility they could have won the MEAC tournament once again if they were able to have the tournament. So when you look at this program, they have had a tremendous amount of success. 7 championships when you consider regular season titles as well as tournament titles over the past 10 years and since they've been in Division I. So much respect to Coach Moulton and what his program has been able to do.
Watley again from deep.
7 for 12 from beyond the 3-point arc right now. And I can tell you, regardless as to whether they have practice or not, these guys have been getting up shots. It's no way they can't, you know, you come in and shoot like this and you have not been getting up shots. 14 assists for the Eagles on 16 made field goals right now, sharing the basketball extremely well. Coach Moulton has to be happy with what he's seen from his team, especially with their lack of practice time.
Well, no question. They have really looked good as this game has progressed, in the lead at 10 right now at 46-36. And the mistakes for South Carolina State have increased and increased due to the sound defense being played by the Eagles.
And that's one of the things that the Bulldogs did early. They didn't turn the basketball over much. They got quality shots attacking the basket, but we do have to remember that their point guard, the freshman Folks, is on the bench right now with 2 fouls, and teams don't often operate the same way without their starting point guard on the floor.
Watley misses the rim that time. 10-point lead for North Carolina Central. Into the corner. That 3 misses. And the rebound taken by Watley. That's another area of concern for the Eagles this season. They have been out-rebounded on a regular basis. The three from Moultrie is in.
And
the bench is cooking right now.
Jameer Moultrie has been on fire ever since he stepped in the game. His third three-pointer already on the evening. And he can't wait to get his hands on the basketball once again. When you're this hot, you want to touch it as often as possible. And I'm not even sure it's called a heat check. If he takes a shot, that's just a good shot for the Eagles.
Approaching a minute left in the first half. Kaiser stripped. All the way in. Lawrence's layup is good.
A nice defense, turning it into offense from Lawrence, taking the basketball from the MEAC's leading scorer and turning it into 2 points in the other direction. And Lavelle Moulton not happy about that possession. Going to call a timeout, talk it over. His team still leads by 11.
Coming up on the E-Trade halftime report, Kevin Nagandi, Seth Greenberg, and LaFonso Ellis recap Miami's victory tonight over Duke. Plus, they'll preview tomorrow's Big 12 showdown between number 6 Texas and number 2 Baylor. That's all coming up on the E-Trade halftime report. Miami continuing the struggles for Duke this season, who just has not been able to find the rhythm. And that's been the case for some of the more successful programs in college basketball this season. It's been an odd year for a lot of teams. Moultrie, he'll launch. Short this time. He finally comes up short. The layup attempt no good. Lawrence battling, but it goes right back over to Krosky, who steps out of bounds.
South Carolina State dodging a bullet on that last possession when you consider Moultrie, who was 3 for 3 already from beyond the arc, got a clean look once again on a defensive breakdown. Both defenders ran away from the hottest guy on the floor, but he was unable to knock it down. Right now, North Carolina Central going to try to keep this for the last possession of the half and preserve this 11-point lead or build on it going into halftime.
Perkins at the controls. 12 seconds left. Out to Moultrie. He'll try a long one. Short. Battling down low, and the turnaround shot well short, but the buzzer goes off as well, and that closes out the first half. 49-38 lead for the Eagles. A solid first half by North Carolina Central in their MEAC opener, up by 11. More on ESPN in a moment. Carolina State and North Carolina Central from Durham, North Carolina. At the half, it's 49-38 in favor of the home Eagles. Derek Jones and Corey Alexander with you this evening. And Corey, the first half, it started out reasonably well for South Carolina State, but the three-point shooting of North Carolina Central has proved to be too much, at least for the moment, for the Bulldogs.
It has been a difference maker when you consider the Eagles are 8 for 16 from beyond the three-point arc, starting out 50% after a layoff. Imagine what this team will be doing once they get in rhythm. But it's been 4 different players for the Eagles that have knocked down a three. 3 of those players have hit multiple three-pointers, especially Jameer Moultrie, who has 3 already and didn't play a lot in the first half as C.J. Kaiser knocked down 2 triples himself. But you have 2 players already for the Eagles in double figures in the first half. Lavelle Moulton happy with the way his offense has played. I'm sure not happy at all with 38 points he's given up to South Carolina State. But when you consider how long of a layoff this group has had, I believe he'll take these results here from the first half.
After talking to both coaches, I wasn't sure which coach was coaching an 0-13 team. The way that Coach Moulton was talking about his team not being able to defend well, not being ready. They looked pretty ready to me as that game wore on. But as you said, that could be just some old coach speak.
Yeah, but 0-13 doesn't, Coach Moulton didn't pay attention to that. He knows that North Carolina Central gets the best shot of every opponent that they play against. Again, we've talked about it. Right now, they are the cream of the crop when you mention the MEAC, so everyone is going to come in and play their best basketball. And he was the first to say that South Carolina State didn't look like an 0-13 team on tape 10.
Second half underway. Watley working down low. Hook shot blocked. Edwards on the move. Setting up for a three. Short. And the rebound grabbed by Watley, who's been very active during this contest.
Yeah, and Watley also missed the contest on Friday as well, as we see another turnover for the Eagles. That has been one area of concern. They had 10 first half turnovers and have a turnover to start the second half. So right now, handling the basketball, you can see there's a bit of rust where the shooting has been spectacular. Making sure they get opportunities has been even more important.
Watley rolling to the rim, contested. Good defense by the Bulldogs. Folks to an open Edwards for three, knocks it down.
And that's just a defensive breakdown by the Eagles. And South Carolina State taking advantage of the opportunities, a wide open three. And Edwards is able to knock it down. Edwards now up to 7 points, normally the leading scorer for South Carolina State.
Into Fennell, and he's fouled. North Carolina Central shared the ball effectively. 15 assists on 17 made field goals in that first half.
And that's something as a coach you have to be happy about, because again, that's the character of your team. You know, and we've mentioned the layoff so many times, but when you think about the fact that these guys are not in rhythm right now, but they still come out and share the basketball, trust their teammates, that is character. You know, what you do when you're not at your best, that's the character of your team. And right now, the turnovers he doesn't like, but sharing the basketball and this three-point shooting, Coach Moten has to have enjoyed in the first half.
That's the first on Edwards. Talking to Coach Garvin of South Carolina State, he mentioned to what you alluded to a few moments ago, Corey. He said that North Carolina Central, in his view, still has the belt, so to speak, in the MEAC. Good contest there at the rim. Battling down low, the flip in by Krosky.
And give South Carolina State credit. They've come in as though they're taking on the champ. And they've given the champ everything that they can handle at this point. And you see the effort defensively for the Bulldogs picking up, especially after a number of baskets here in the second half to make this a closer game. And now they come up with another defensive stop, looking to cut into this lead even more.
Folks penetrating. Scoop layup is good. Beautiful move.
And one of the things that we have to mention, Derek, North Carolina Central made a run when Fulks went to the bench. Fulks now back on the floor playing with 2 fouls, but the freshman has been very good. Now he's in double figures in this game, but he's been spectacular thus far. And remember, he's from Winston-Salem, so coming back to his home state, he is definitely prepared to put on a show here tonight.
He wants to show out, no doubt about that, in front of some of his contemporaries in this state. 8-point game. Folks again. Short this time, battling, bumped into Watley, and the save cannot be made by Watley. It'll stay the Bulldogs.
Now this is the good Folks. The nice move, the finish with the left hand. But we talked with Coach Garvin about Folks, and he said, hey, sometimes he forgets that he's not playing in high school basketball anymore. The guys in the paint can block his shot, as what we saw on the last possession. But a big-time high school scorer, played in Moravian Prep alongside Shaquille Moore, Josh Hall. You know, Josh Hall, who's playing for the Oklahoma City Thunder right now, who skipped college, and Shaquille Moore starring at NC State. And this young man knows that he's on that level and getting it done at South Carolina State.
The drive and the finish by Krosky. And that cuts it to a 6-point game. Folks had averaged 35 points a game in his final year at North Davidson in high school.
That's bucket.
Yeah, that's good.
Coach Garvin, as we see the easy backdoor for Fennell, and continuing to be great passing from North Carolina Central. But one of the things that, you know, Coach Garvin said about Folks, he's not just confident, he's oftentimes overconfident, which, you know, I'm not a believer in. I don't think you can ever be overconfident, but I've been called that. So maybe that's part of the reason why I don't believe it. But, you know, when you see the way that he comes out and approaches these games, he's not backing down from anybody. Jordan Perkins could very well be the best point guard in the MEAC when you consider what he's been able to do. There's never been a year that, you know, Perkins has played at North Carolina Central where they haven't won the MEAC championship. And now with him over 500 assists, but you see folks not backing down at all from the veteran point guard and taking it to him at every opportunity he can.
Kaiser missed the shot. Fennell could not get the follow. Out for the Bulldogs. No look feed. And a travel on Davis. 8-point edge for the Eagles. South Carolina State trying to hang in there on the road in Durham. ESPN's exclusive presentation of college basketball is brought to you by Progressive. Save when you bundle auto, home, or motorcycle insurance. Visit Progressive.com.
Your way, way better.
North Carolina Central has represented the MEAC in the NCAA tournament the last 3 seasons that have been completed. 2017, defeating Norfolk State, knocking off Hampton in 2018, and then 1 year later, 2019, knocking off Norfolk State yet again. Corey, this is a program that is at the top of the MEAC.
It really is, and when you consider, you know, the difference between these two programs and the reason why South Carolina State has played 13 games. 13 games where they have been invited to teams, you know, home to be able to play games there. Well, very few Power 5, high major, whatever you want to call them, programs are inviting North Carolina Central. And the reason being is because just that. North Carolina Central can come into your house and beat you. And that's one of the areas where, you know, Lavelle Moulton doesn't get the same phone calls that Murray Garvin gets because teams, frankly, are scared of Central. They recognize how good this program is and what Lavelle Moulton and his staff have been able to do over the past few years, and the level of talent that they had and the way that they play defense. They can come into your building and beat you. This is a team that on December the 12th went to Chapel Hill and played North Carolina, lost that game by 6 points, and again, with very little practice time. This is not the team that you want to play with. They will ruin your homecoming. You don't want to invite Central in on homecoming.
That's the second foul against Edwards. Both fouls against Edwards picked up in the second half. Moultrie back in the mix. Pump fake, stripped, but he was fouled as a part of it. And he may very well be going to the line. As Davis can't believe the call.
Jameer Moultrie, not just a three-point shooter, getting in attack mode, going to the rim. There's a lot of basketball on that play. But, of course, we have the opportunity to be able to see it in slow motion where the officials don't have that and have to make those quick calls. And Jameer Moultrie didn't play really the first 10 minutes of this game. But once he checked in, first possession, knocked down the three, and was ready to fire the next time he caught the basketball. 3 for 5 from beyond the three-point arc in the first half. And because of that performance, he got the second half start. But we talked about him coming in 9.5 points per game for the Eagles, but did not play in their game on Friday. So it was uncertain as to whether we would see him, especially after he didn't participate in this game early. But he has made his presence felt ever since he stepped on the floor.
He was not bashful about putting it up as soon as he came into the game.
If you can shoot the basketball that well, you're not supposed to be there.
Touche. Edwards. The Bulldogs down by 8. Shot clock to 5. Got hit on the way up, lets it go again and gets it this time.
Great play there by Edwards after a strong defensive effort by Jordan Perkins to take the basketball away from him, but Edwards sticking to it, knocking down the mid-range jumper and making this a 6-point game. You know, we talked a lot about North Carolina Central, but we haven't talked about the fact that South Carolina State will not let them pull away.
Good defense down low by Lawrence with the block. The follow no good. Fennell battling down low. Fennell hanging, fouled. And they'll go to the line for a pair.
2 offensive rebounds on that possession for North Carolina Central. The stick-to-itiveness to be able to come up with an opportunity to put points on the board.
Opponents have a +10 rebounding advantage this season against North Carolina Central. As Fennell good on the first. He's had a strong second half here so far. His 7th point of the second half.
That's a very misleading stat when you consider the opponents that they've played against. Yes. Iowa with Luka Garza, one of the top bigs in the country, if not the top big man in the country. Then North Carolina, the leading rebounding team nationally, averaging over 43 rebounds per game. So, again, it's tough to out-rebound those 2 teams. And then you think about the fact they played against Southern, and they've had so many of their games canceled. They did go to Coastal Carolina, but, you know, they've only played 5 games coming into this one this season, and 2 of those games have been against big-time rebounding teams.
Kick ball there. By the way, that last foul against the Bulldogs picked up by Latavian Lawrence. Number 2 on him. Bulldogs hanging around here, down by 8. And it's Edwards trying to split the defense, and that leads to a whistle. Bowles picks up his 3rd of the night. And will go the other way, and that screen may have been a little bit too aggressive there by Medall.
One of the things that we expected in this game, when you consider the layoffs, would be turnovers, and now both teams with 11 and 12 turnovers respectively. So I'm sorry, 11 turnovers for each team. So, you know, hasn't been crazy, but when you consider still, you know, 13 and a half minutes remaining, the turnover numbers could get heavy, especially the teams shooting the basketball as well as both teams have in this game.
And a jump ball off the dive by Kaiser. That was Medall's 3rd foul, by the way. The jump ball possession arrow pointing in favor of South Carolina State.
And that's going to be the 5th turnover on Kaiser alone. So he has 5 of the 12 turnovers now for North Carolina Central. And that's one of the things that LaVelle Moulton talked to us about earlier. At times, Kaiser will try to do too much on the offensive end of the floor. He knows he's a big-time scorer, but at the same time, trust your teammates, allow them to make plays for you, which we saw oftentimes in the first half where he was the recipient of kickouts for 3.
Melvin finds an open shooter. The 3 is good out of the hands of Devin Palmer.
Now the 9th three-pointer made for North Carolina Central, and they've had 2 games this year already where they've made 9 threes. Only 3 times a year ago were they able to make 10 threes in a game. So off to a great shooting start, and that's an easy one for the Eagles getting to the basket.
Melvin just coasted through the Bulldogs defense, and that elicits a timeout out of Murray Garvin and the Bulldogs. 13-point lead for North Carolina Central. The 3-point shooting working once again here in half 2. It's a huge Super Tuesday doubleheader for you tomorrow on ESPN and the app. At 7 Eastern, number 6 Texas hosts number 2 Baylor. Then we head to the Big Ten for number 12 Illinois squaring off against Indiana. Super Tuesday presented by Progressive. Tremendous doubleheader of action headed your way as a part of Super Tuesday tomorrow. North Carolina Central trying to hold off South Carolina State in the 50th anniversary of the MEAC. In a year where North Carolina Central will hope to find their way back to the MEAC tournament and get another opportunity to win the MEAC championship.
Well, this would be a good year for them to do it. Actually, a docu-series with executive producer Chris Paul going to be airing starting February the 12th on the North Carolina Central program called Why Not Us. It will be an 8-part docu-series. And, of course, Chris Paul, who's been a champion for HBCUs. We saw Chris Paul wearing the, his custom J's, his custom Jordans with all the different HBCU schools on his shoes representing HBCUs in the bubble. And so now Chris taking it a step further, Chris Paul is actually enrolled at Winston-Salem State University. We know about his career at Wake Forest, but actually enrolled at Winston-Salem State where he will get his degree. And all of his family, his brother CJ, who actually played at Hampton early and then transferred to South Carolina Upstate, as we get a look at the North Carolina Central version of the CP3s that he wore during the bubble. And, Chris Paul is doing one thing. He's putting his money where his mouth is. He's talked about elevating HBCUs and now bringing the docu-series to ESPN+, along with the Undefeated, has been a great effort from he and his brother CJ. And you see the Jordans being very well represented by the Eagles.
Coach Moten talked about what a positive it was for Chris Paul to showcase all of the different HBCU programs while he was in the bubble, and that really helps promote, obviously, yes, the MEAC, but also all of the HBCU schools as well, as once again Palmer sinks a three from the corner.
And the 10th three-point field goal made for the Eagles on the evening. And I'm not sure that this is something that Coach Moten was counting on. Now, he knew his team would come out and play hard and be excited about the opportunity, not only to play, but to play on national television. But I don't think he was thinking they were going to come in and knock down 10 threes when they haven't done that in any of their previous 5 games this year. But now double-digit threes for the Eagles. Corner three is good as they continue to build their lead here at home.
When you talk about rivalries, it doesn't get much better than North Carolina and Duke coming up on Saturday at 6 p.m. Eastern right here on ESPN. And Corey, you look at this matchup between these two schools, still a lot at stake here for both UNC and Duke, despite the fact this is a rare occurrence where they're both unranked.
And coming into the night, both teams were 5-3 in ACC play. However, the Blue Devils losing tonight at Miami. North Carolina plays tomorrow at Clemson, so going to be interesting to see how both these teams come into this matchup on Saturday. And, of course, this game will be played right down the street when you consider both Duke and North Carolina Central in the city of Durham. So I'm sure a few interested parties in this game as well will be checking that out on Saturday.
To the post down low for Fennell. Moultrie, who's had a strong game, continues.
And Jameer Moultrie has been instant offense off the bench for the Eagles. And getting it done now on the defensive end of the floor as well, as Moultrie is now up to 15 points in 13 minutes in this game. So microwave type numbers for Jameer Moultrie.
14-2 run for North Carolina Central. Largest lead of the game now at 18 and 69 to 51. Fulks with the feed into the corner. 3-ball up. That's short. Out of the hands of Floyd Rideau Jr.
Jameer Moultrie getting it done off the bounce, running him off the three-point line so he goes to the mid-range and then getting out into the passing lanes. The steal and the easy bucket. As Jameer Moultrie has been a difference maker for the Eagles coming into this game. And we mentioned he probably didn't play for the first 10 to 12 minutes of game action, but once he checked into the game, he came in on fire. 15 points for Moultrie now, as he leads the Eagles in scoring in this one.
And that's one of the things with this situation that North Carolina Central finds themselves in really the last 6 weeks of the season. As we said, if you're just joining us late, this is a team in North Carolina Central. This is their MEAC opener. They've only practiced 6 times this season. That's not in the span of January. That's the season. So when you come into this game, you have to be ready to play. And they have been ready to play tonight.
Well, whatever they did in those 6 practices, it worked. you have to give Lavelle Moulton and his coaches a lot of credit for what they've been able to do. And these players, you know, despite all of the time off, seem to be in a very good rhythm. They have turned the ball over a bit in this game, but that's really the only negative you can say about what they've been able to do thus far. And, you know, give Coach Moulton a lot of credit. And he even said to himself, that he coaches from the other end of the floor. I mean, he's concerned about making sure that he doesn't take COVID back home to, you know, his mother or to his son, his wife, his family. And so it has been a different year for Coach Moulton as well as Coach Garvin when you consider how they've been able to go about coaching their teams and the differences that they've had to deal with, you know. Not only differences in this year, but between the two programs where you see South Carolina State, they've been going at it on a daily basis where, like you mentioned before, only 6 practices on the season for the Eagles.
An attack by Melvin, but a foul. And I believe that will be against Melvin. Lead of 18 here for North Carolina Central. That's the 4th on Melvin as Jordan Perkins makes his way back into the game.
Shot of my man B. Graves, Brian Graves right there on the North Carolina Central bench. One of the up-and-coming assistant coaches in the country, does a tremendous job on the recruiting trail. I know because he calls me about players all the time. Got to love his effort. Been at Hampton, been at Longwood, a number of stops along the way, and now found a home with Lavelle Moulton at North Carolina Central.
Moultrie there searching for a new season high in scoring, and the ball knocked away from him. On the finish, it will stay with North Carolina Central, up 18. Coach Moulton talked about obviously the challenges from a physical perspective of COVID, but also mentally for these players. And it has not been easy for the players to deal with, not being around each other, not having the camaraderie, the chemistry to really get things back to the way they were before everything changed last year.
Well, one thing's for certain, and this is throughout college basketball, not just at North Carolina Central, but you're asking 18 to 23-year-old young men, and you see his statement, they went absolutely stir crazy, and I understand it. You know, I agree, because I can't imagine being at that age group and told I have to stay in my dorm room. I've got to stay in my apartment for, 3 to 5, 7 days at a time, and no social interaction, especially at that age, that is tough to do. You know, you lean on your teammates, you lean on your coaching staff, et cetera, but oftentimes you have to be separated from them as well. And so, you know, hats off to all these young men and women who are going out and playing college sports right now, because they do this without pay. They do this for free. Now, they do get an education, and I respect that. But, again, they're also volunteering because there are so many who have opted out on the season. But those who have decided to play are dealing with a tremendous sacrifice, and they should be commended for it.
5 team fouls against North Carolina Central. They've got to be careful here. The fouls are starting to mount up. 4 on Melvin, 4 on Bowles, now 3 on Fennell.
One thing about North Carolina Central, they are prepared. This is a very deep team. They can play up to 12 players comfortably. And when you've got guys coming off the bench like Jameer Moultrie knocking down threes, you know, as well as Palmer knocking down threes, I mean, they've got guys who can come in and make an immediate impact. So at some point, once Coach Moulton gets an opportunity to get his team into a regular practice, there are going to be some big-time practices. We've talked about Moultrie and his shooting, but Palmer already knocked down 2 threes of his own here in the second half.
The bench scoring has been so effective tonight for North Carolina Central. One of the big difference makers in this game, without a doubt. Nice shake and bake pull-up jumper. Got it. Tariq Simmons.
I like Simmons. I like Fulks. You know, South Carolina State has a number of very good pieces. They don't have the overall talent that North Carolina Central has, but they have some good pieces. And Coach Murray Garver talked to us about the fact that if this team stays together, which oftentimes is tough to do with their scholarship scenario, but if this team can stay together, they will be good. They will have a good group to work with in the future, because right now they are playing a lot of young players. Simmons is the only senior that is getting, you know, steady minutes for this team.
Easy bucket back down the floor off the turnover. There's a conversion there by Simmons. And a timeout will be called here by Coach Moulton and the Eagles. 74-57 lead for North Carolina Central. More from Durham. Stay tuned. (74-57) lead for North Carolina Central over South Carolina State. Derek Jones and Corey Alexander with you tonight. And Corey, the bench play of North Carolina Central has been a major factor in this game.
It really has, and that's an advantage that Lavelle Moulton has when you consider the level of talent that they have on this team. There are 7 Division I transfers coming in to North Carolina Central when you think about the makeup of this roster. And then you've got a point guard like Jordan Perkins, who's been with them for 4 years now and continues to make this team better, a significant playmaker. But when you look at it, they have so much balance. And again, this is a group that hasn't really practiced much, 6 games the entire season. So I'm sure once they're able to get some continuity going and getting type of rhythm, this team is going to be a problem for MEAC opponents.
Palmer, who's been on fire from 3 tonight, hits the ball off his foot. It'll go out of bounds. He only had 3 seconds to shoot anyhow. It was going to be a tough save on the possession.
That's okay. You rather the shot than the turnover. Right now, 17 turnovers now for North Carolina Central. That's the one area where you've seen the rush showing for this team as Fulks continues to play very well for South Carolina State. The freshman having a productive night, although his team trails by 15.
12 points for Fulks tonight as this one's thrown into Watley. And a steal. Krosky, he loses the ball. 4-on-1. Kaiser all the way in, takes it himself, he gets fouled.
And Kaiser coming up with the steal after a nice play by Palmer to get his hands on the basketball. Getting out in transition, folks, with the foul.
And that's number 4 on Folks. His foul trouble carrying over from the first half. Kaiser good on the first. Thursday, it's a big one in the Big Ten. Number 7 Ohio State, winners of 3 straight and 6 of their last 7 on the road against Luka Garza. And number 8 Iowa. Coverage starts at 7 Eastern, 6 Central on ESPN and the app. 2 from Kaiser. That's a lead of 17 for the Eagles with 5:40 and ticking left to go.
And Derek, I got to give a shout out to my ladies. Trisha Stafford Odom, head coach for North Carolina Central women's team, and of course my big sister Audra Smith, the head coach of South Carolina State's women's team. And when you consider that this COVID issue, whatever we call it, that we're dealing with, doesn't just affect the men, it's also affected the women's programs, and where they have been able to get even less games in because of the cancellations, et cetera. So, you know, shout out to everyone that is, all the coaches that are trying to keep their young men and women intact, mentally healthy, as well as physically healthy throughout this time, and continuing to try to teach our young men and women the ways of life during this difficult time, because I can't imagine having to be responsible for 15 to 20 young men, young women during this time where you're asking them to give up so much, not just to be able to play basketball, but to be able to attend school.
Palmer for 3 again. Devin Palmer. He had 4 in a row in the win on Friday against Carver, heating up here tonight as the Bulldogs have a 3-point answer of their own. Corey, to kind of piggyback off of that point, it's a different ask for professional athletes versus collegiate athletes, and what they have to miss out on at the college level for sure because of COVID.
It really is, and not just, you know, from a sports standpoint. You have to think about the social standpoint, you know, and again, I enjoyed my 4 years at the University of Virginia, unlike any other. I can't imagine being in college and not having the opportunity to be able to socialize, and yet, you know, being confined to practice and your dorm rooms, if you have the opportunity to practice, you know, it's asking a lot of these young men, these young women to be able to come out and do this. And that's one of the things that, you know, Coach Garvin was very, he was very, you know, emphatic about getting across the point that, hey, his team has done it. They have made the sacrifices. They bought in to what they've been asking them to do, and he's proud of them for that. It hasn't manifested in their play on the court, but yet he feels as though this group is learning life lessons from what they're dealing with right now and becoming stronger men because of it. And I'm sure Coach Moulton would, you know, echo that sentiment.
Rasan Edwards talking about the remainder of the season a few days ago, said he felt like, and the team as well, felt like it was only a matter of time before they made their way into the win column, as the drive by Palmer. Big body, long arms, tough finish.
You know, and we have to mention that these two teams will play again tomorrow. I mean, less than 24 hours, they've got a 7 p.m. tip tomorrow. So, again, there will be another opportunity for South Carolina State to try to get that win. But right now, the Eagles from North Carolina Central firing on all cylinders with a 17-point lead.
Corey, Devin Palmer putting on a show here in the second half.
Yeah, 14 second-half point win, but right now, the Eagles from North Carolina Central firing on all cylinders with a 17-point lead.
Corey, Devin Palmer putting on a show here in the second half.
Yeah, 14 second-half points for Palmer, knocking down 3 threes, also finding his way to the rim. And really, he's been the spark plug off the bench in the second half. We had Jameer Moultrie getting it done in the first half. It's been Palmer in the second half. And LaVelle Moulton has a multitude of weapons to deal with. You look at it, I'm sorry, 4 3-pointers. I must have missed one for Palmer as he knocked down 4 threes in the second half in their win Friday night over Carver. And when you look at Palmer's just another one of the many options that Lavelle Moulton can turn to score for this team.
Fennell trapped between 2 defenders, goes up and can't score. The loose ball taken by Krosky, who falls to the floor. May have gotten some assistance there, and that will lead to a foul.
Derek, we came on air talking about C.J. Kaiser, who averages 21.6 points per game. Kaiser has 12 points, and he scored 10 of those early in the game. But ever since then, it's been about Moultrie and Palmer who have really carried the load offensively. Fennell has been spectacular as well. And Kaiser, this is a scenario where Lavelle Moulton has talked to Kaiser about the fact that he doesn't have to do everything for this team, but one thing that he does have to do is defend. He feels as though he can be an elite-level defender, and if he does that, he can help this team win their 4th straight MEAC championship.
Well, if they are going to shoot like this moving forward, then that assessment will be even stronger moving forward, because this is a team that offensively coming in was averaging over 75 points per game. Kaiser, a strong player offensively, leading the MEAC in scoring. But you're right, defensively, if he can kick it into another gear, look out.
Well, I can tell you one thing, Derek, and of course you saw my interaction with Lavelle Moulton. He's one of my guys. So you saw us talking earlier, and we had a couple of text exchanges afterwards. I know Coach Moulton very well. He is not happy with the 68 points that South Carolina State has right now. I can guarantee you that. Regardless as to how much his team has practiced, whatever condition they're in, he is not happy with a team coming into his building and putting up 68 points and still with 3.5 minutes remaining in this game. He is about defense, getting stops. The offense will take care of itself. And that is something that, North Carolina Central is going to put a lot of work in their upcoming days of practice as they try to get prepared for a full MEAC schedule.
And we'll talk about the scheduling here coming up in a moment, as a heave put up there by Simmons, unable to go. We talked about the schedule being different this year. They're going to play South Carolina State tomorrow. Back-to-backs this season, Saturday, Sunday typically, because of how everything progressed with this particular game. They're going to play tomorrow again as well. And Corey, you brought it up earlier. North Carolina Central's in a tough spot because they need to get 13 games, and otherwise they may not qualify for the NCAA tournament, as we get an and one here on the way for Krosky.
Well, I've got a fix for that, Derek. Now, I don't know the likelihood of it happening. However, Lavelle Moulton is a very good friend to many high-level coaches in college basketball, specifically Mike Krzyzewski as well as Roy Williams. Well, when you consider if Duke, North Carolina, who they played in Chapel Hill already, Duke, North Carolina, maybe Wake Forest, maybe Kevin Keats at NC State, decide, hey, we're going to help out North Carolina Central, and we're going to go visit Central to keep costs down to where they don't have to open their arena. Travel is short. It's just a quick bus ride. We're going to go play at North Carolina Central to help this team get to their minimum number, because, again, they cannot have any cancellations throughout the remainder of this season and get to 13 regular season games. So the only way to try to make that happen is to pull in some other games outside of the MEAC. Now, we also mentioned earlier that they have a 17, this will be 18-game winning streak in this building. I'm not sure we're going to be able to get any of those ACC teams to come over here and take a chance playing against the Eagles.
Especially this season. Might not be quick to pick up the phone. Couple of notes there on the previous series. Melvin picking up his 5th foul. So he's out of the game now. Krosky has been carrying the load here for South Carolina State as well, scoring the last 13 points in this game for the Bulldogs, as the first is in from Perkins, who has further solidified his place at 2nd place all-time in program history in assists.
7 assists, only 2 turnovers tonight. for Jordan Perkins, but 19 turnovers for North Carolina Central, which is another area of concern for Coach Bolton. But when you consider the back-to-back scenario, when you have the level of depth that this team has, and you know you've got to play 2 games, in 24 hours, North Carolina Central could really help themselves, with this level of depth, because very few teams in the MEAC are going to be able to compete 1 through 12 the way that they can.
Oh, no question. This team has 12 of 13 players on the roster that are either juniors or seniors. Now, while the chemistry may not be there quite yet, as we see tonight, the talent is.
Well, you look at 20 assists or 29 made field goals right now. The chemistry ain't bad.
Yeah.
I can tell you that, but it can get better, but it ain't bad right now.
Another three-pointer by Palmer as he is pouring it in. The missed bucket, rebound grab by Wadley. 5 3-pointers for Palmer, 6 of 8 from the field. As North Carolina Central on their way. Win number 3 of the season, and it's Wadley.
Did for Tennessee yesterday. She had 10 blocks.
Earlier, if you're going to shoot the basketball this way, it's going to be difficult to beat the Eagles all season long.
And a three-pointer good there for the Bulldogs out of the hands of Folks. 91-74 lead. And just a quick follow-up point as we get a look here at the MEAC standings. Actually, we'll take a look at the MEAC standings and then get to the point after this. Corey, when you take a look at how this is laying out, what stands out to you?
Well, I love seeing, my guy Juan Dixon and Coppin State at the top at 5-2 with the Northern Division. But what stands out is that Howard, and then coming into this game, North Carolina Central have yet to play a MEAC game as of February the 1st. And we know that Howard right now is on COVID pause. So as North Carolina Central gets in 2 games this weekend, Howard still will not play. And it's going to be interesting to see if Kenny Blakeney and his group can find a way to get to those 13 games, especially considering that they're on COVID pause. Once again, we dealt with this with them in December. And again, no fault to him and his players. This is the society that we're living in. And, it's tough to do. And I don't care how much sacrifice that you make. I mean, it's difficult to be able to try to keep COVID out of your program. Everyone is dealing with it. But it's going to be interesting to see, can they get to that number, that 13 number that allows them to be eligible for the NCAA tournament if they were able to win the MEAC tournament.
And one thing to keep in mind is Perkins drives and he loses the ball out of bounds. Some people may be thinking, well, as you advance in a conference tournament, can't you just count all those games? No. The conference tournament only counts as 1 game, no matter how far you advance in the conference tournament.
In which I believe the NCAA has to change that. I mean, again,
yeah,
that makes absolutely no sense when you consider if you play the game, it should count as a game. I mean, playing 3 games, only counting as 1, I'm not sure in any scenario where that makes sense.
I couldn't agree more. It's especially in leagues that are bigger. I mean, that's how it should be, without a doubt. As Edwards pours in a three-pointer with 6 seconds left to go. And North Carolina Central opening up MEAC play in style. They still have the belt. Corey, how about their performance here tonight?
Well, you got to be happy for North Carolina Central, but with now an 18-game winning streak here at home. But the fortunate part for South Carolina State, we get to do it again tomorrow.
Coming up next on ESPN2, The Undefeated presents Black History Always. For Corey Alexander and our entire ESPN crew, I'm Derek Jones. Thank you so much for watching. Our final score, North Carolina Central 91, South Carolina State 77. Have a good night, everybody.